Okay, so the CX500 is now here in the Urban Monk Monastery garage in Southern California, and I have stated that we are going to do a restoration on this as an ongoing series here on Urban Monk TV. What does that mean? Well, we have to take an assessment of all the things that we're going to have to do. Welcome to Urban Monk TV. Okay, so we're in the garage with my childhood first street bike, the CX500 Custom, and I can't tell you what it is doing to me emotionally to have this thing here in my garage, and here I can grab it and hold on to it. I've dreamt about having another one of these for a long time, and so I'm super excited that it's here. I just love them. I'm not really even like a cruiser riding position kind of guy, but you know, your feet are at least under you on a CX500, and now that I sit on it, I'm so surprised how low to the ground I am on this thing as compared to my V-Strom. I guess I've just become accustomed to sitting up pretty high when I ride, but it does bring back a lot of memories. Having that V-twin right there between your legs just reminds me of riding to high school with my books in my backpack, and I would park this thing right up next to the door on the walkway up to Fargo North High School. You know, Google it, look it up. You can even see where I parked this thing, just sitting there on the south end of the building. Anyways, that's an aside. I've said that we're going to restore this thing. So what does that mean? Like, what do we have to do? What level of restoration are we going for here? And, you know, at what cost? So first thing we got to do is just clean the bike up, and I'm going to do that in a second, but I have to just put a shout out to a couple of people. First, both YouTube channels that I've been turned on to recently. One I've mentioned before. I've been watching it for a long time, so I guess that's not really accurate of me to say that I've been turned on to him recently. I've been watching him forever. Anders at Around on a Bike has a new series this summer where he is going motorcycle camping and taking all of the back roads on his Yamaha Tenere and camping, or what he calls gravel and bivvies. This is the name of the series, Gravel and Bivvies, and I'm just enjoying it immensely. Maybe because it's he's in Sweden, and a lot of the terrain that he has there in Sweden at his camping and riding disposal, it reminds me of Minnesota, especially northern Minnesota. And there is a huge number of Scandinavian people that have settled in Minnesota for that very reason. And so I even have a Scandinavian last name myself. So, and no, Monk is not Scandinavian. But check out his channel. I just love it. It's great. I can't get enough of it, and I like his style. And then another one that Rodney from Allison Sails and Canvas, who's done my seat, he turned me on to Alan Millyard. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And he is taking a Kawasaki Z1 or Z1 four-cylinder engine, and he's got two of them. He's cut them, welded on another two cylinders from one engine onto another, and is building what he calls the Z1 Super 6. He's building a six-cylinder engine from a couple of four cylinders, and It's like Rodney calls him a mad scientist. I love it. It's so cool and quite an undertaking. Check it out if you get a chance. So he's got plenty of subscribers and plenty of viewers, and many of you are probably already turned on to him, but I'm enjoying him. I wanted to give him a plug here. So hey, first thing we got to do is clean this thing up.
If you like motorcycles, custom builds, or just like a good story about a man's 3-year effort to build a tribute to his childhood teacher, get a copy of Creating Mr. Corton. In it, you'll learn how this man changed this man for the better, how this man took this and built this, how these guys became lifelong friends and enthusiasts of motorcycling and craftsmanship, and how the name Urban Monk originated. It's available from Amazon anywhere in the world that Amazon ships, in both paperback and ebook, or you can purchase through a link found on urbanmonktv.com. Get your copy of Creating Mr. Corton today.
Okay, now that we've got the thing clean and all of the dirt and dust off of it, I want to just protect as many of these surfaces as I can, because things are going to be taken apart and they're going to stay apart for quite a while just sitting. Motorcycles don't like to sit, they like to be run, and it keeps the engine lubricated, it keeps the fuel from going stagnant and stale and gumming up your carburetors and the little jets within them. And this bike is already 40 years old. I want to stop any rust as quickly as I can, because frankly the value of this thing is the lack of rust that it has at this point, and that it has the hope of getting on the road again. So I'm going to put a layer of wax on it. I'm paying particular attention to these spots down here where the seat rubs against the tank with engine vibration, and just wiggling your butt around on the seat and removes the paint down to the metal. So I just want to make sure that I've got a good layer of wax on that. And then also this little tiny chip right here, I'm just getting the wax right down in there. Anywhere I see stuff like that where there's bare metal, I'm going to protect it with this wax. For now, we're going to have to see what the plan of attack is going to be for imperfections in paint there. The key with a restoration that's different from a customization is, if you can leave it original, you should. But what does that mean? You know, original. Okay, so we want to preserve the value of as much of the value of this bike as we can. So what's of value? This is where it gets kind of squishy. The original is always the most valuable, but this is original. Leaving this, to me, this is a no-brainer that I want to leave this alone because it's original, and the more you touch it, the more you devalue the bike at this point. But this is original too. Do you leave this like this, or do you try to bring it closer to this? These are some questions that frankly I don't have the answer for right now, but I'm gonna find out. So I gotta do my research. My guess is I need to do something about this, but that's a guess right now. Don't take my word for it. And while these are plastic and there's no risk of rust, the wax will still protect the paint from fading. Not that it's getting a lot of sunlight here in my garage, but it's gonna get sunlight eventually. So I'm gonna go ahead and wax these two. So another thing I'm doing as I go around the bike is as I go around cleaning the bike, is finding things that are missing or need repair and starting a list of items. In the introduction video, I discovered that I'm missing one of these screws that hold the rear taillight lens on. And so I measured that up. It's an M4 55 millimeter length, just standard JIS screw, and I got to replace that. So I put it on a list of parts to order. I just thought of something. What the heck was it? Anyways, I know it. Oh, battery. So why am I making a list of all the things I need? I could just find something that I need on the bike and just go order it. I'm making a list because I'm going to end up ordering a lot of parts. Many of them may come from the same supplier, and if I go and order one screw from one place and the grommets for these side covers from another, and I may find myself going back to the same place I bought the grommets from and ordering some other part and paying shipping again. So trying to build as big and comprehensive a list as I can on the front end so that I save myself some money on shipping and just consolidate the order. Get as much as I can in one box, so to speak. And then also as I go, I'm trying to write down, sizes and part numbers and things that I need. Tires, I got the original owner's manual here, which is kind of cool. I wish I had the original tool kit. I don't. May pick one of those up. So the front is a 3.5 by 19 tubeless, and the rear is a 130 90 16. So today the 130 90 16 is that's your metric tire measurement convention. This is the old English or SAE. It's 3.5 inches in tire section width. I'm likely not going to be able to buy in 2020 a tire that comes in this size, at least, you know, with this rating. So I got to convert. So how do I do that conversion? Well, kind of one simple way is to look at what tire is on the bike. And here I see I've got it's a little hidden. I've got a 100 90/19. Well, if I convert 100 to 100 millimeters, that is, to English, I get 3.94, let's round up, 3.94 inches. So that is a wider section than what originally came on the bike, but it's close, and this is rolling, it fits. You know, maybe I could look at a 95, but if I know 100 works, I got some numbers to play with, and I'll go see what tires are available that will fit this thing. Now, one word on tires for the CX500. I happen to have the benefit of having owned one of these at one point in my life. I was very young, with the original tires on it from the factory. In 1986, I bought a 1982, and I can tell you from experience, these came with Dunlop qualifiers with a raised white letter on the side of the sidewall. And you know, that has a certain kind of look to it, and to me, that's the way this bike is intended to look. Raised white letter tires. Now I can tell you, I've already been looking and finding raised white letter tires from a tire manufacturer in these sizes is already proving difficult. So I may have to come up with some other plan there to get that look. They do make the Dunlop qualifier, but alas, not in this size anymore. Now these wheels on the Honda CX500 are the same Comstar tubeless. By the way, these were the first tubeless design for a wheel from one of the big manufacturers. So in a way, these Comstars are very historical wheels. There was one company making aluminum or alloy mag wheels before this, but they were an aftermarket option that people were putting on their Hondas and mainly Japanese motorcycles, and those were Lester brand. If you find like a Honda Goldwing with Lester wheels, grab it. Or wait, don't, let me grab it. So Comstars, I had these exact same wheels on my CB900, and I know from that experience that Shinko, which you know I'm a fan of the Shinko 705s if you follow my channel, they're a good value. Pricing just cannot be beat with Shinkos, and I get good wear out of them. I don't race them, I don't go to track days. I understand that this may not be the absolute best traction, best turning tire and best wet weather tire out there, but they're perfectly adequate for everything that I do. And Shinko does make tires for this bike in what they call their 712 series, but they're not raised white letter, so I'm gonna have to do something about that. Another thing I just have to do is get that fairing off. We'll do that in a bit on this video. So I'm just looking the bike over everywhere and exploring, and you know, if I'm going to get this bike running, of course I'm going to need the big four. I need fuel, air, spark, compression, and you know, valve timing, that kind of thing. So fuel, I'm thinking about the air coming in here. I've already checked out the air filter in the air box. I'll get a new air filter, but then from there it goes through these rubber boots into the carbs. So I'm just checking to see if these are cracked or if they're pliable. These are still pretty good, but I get to this oh sorry, that's on strobe, and I'm seeing some cracking there on that intake boot.
I'm going to write that one down on my list of parts to buy. You know, these are very hard, so it's not like I could squish that anyways. It may not be leaking, but why take a chance? We're going to have it apart anyways, more than likely. Put that on my list. The other side is looking better. No cracks there, and this side is nice and pliable also, so I'll leave that. Now that I've got things off, you know, as I take parts off the bike, I'm looking for rust and corrosion. Obviously a little here, a little in here, and then the way they had that top box mounted and backrest, it was rubbing against here, and it hasn't actually rusted very badly, but it's going to. It's gone through the chrome, so I'll have to see what I can do about that. Got some surface rust here. You'd be amazed what a guy can do about that. We'll get rid of all of that. So, you know, that's a salvageable chrome part for sure. Most of this is salvageable. And there's a little up here we're going to have to address. But, you know, I really feel like I got my hands on this bike just in time. Here's another area where things get hot. That crossover tube with the exhaust underneath the bike. Oh, I don't know if that's gonna come into focus. Yeah, that ain't bad. I'm gonna take that all off and treat all of that rust, and we will repaint that with a high temperature paint, and that'll look great. You know, it's still solid. Looks like I've got a little rust there to deal with, and that is a little bit more significant. It's also going to be quite visible once I get this fairing off. Oh, and a little rust on the back of the speedometer and tack. We'll see what we can do. Fair bit of rust to deal with here. I don't think it's insurmountable. We'll find out in a future episode. So that is beginning to look a lot more like what mine looked like when I bought it in 1986. And what they're supposed to look like in my mind. So why take the fairing off? It is period correct. At that time, a lot of people, including the previous owner on this bike, put those fairings on for comfort. And hey, you know, it is more comfortable to have a fairing. When I'm riding the V-Strom, I'm just happy as a clam behind that tall windshield. But this is a restoration project, and I'm trying to restore the bike back to original. Well, what was original? Vetter is not Honda. Hondaline, I may go with that backrest. If that thing turns out to be a Hondaline product, then I think it belongs on the bike. And they're comfortable. It's nice to slide that backrest up right behind your back, and you can ride one of these things all day. The seat's amazingly comfortable for what these are. But that fairing has got to go. The other thing is, there are people out there that really love those fairings, and you know, if I'm not one of them, then maybe someone that really appreciates it should have it, and I would love to put it in their hands. So what else does this bike need? In order to test the electrical system, I've got to get it running. And what do I have to do to get it running? I got to clean out the gas tank and get fresh gasoline in there.
When I got this thing delivered, the first thing I did is pour some seafoam into the gas tank just to stabilize what's there, although it already has turned some. But hopefully, you know, it won't get worse. And then I'm going to have to get these carb bowls off and drain those. Possibly might be able to get the bowls off on this bike without taking the carbs off the thing. That'd be nice, but there's an amazing amount of access there if you've got a 90-degree screwdriver that ratchets, and I do. And then what else? I got to change the oil. I believe my brother put automotive oil into the crankcase because he's got somebody who fancies himself a motorcycle mechanic, and they just couldn't tell me whether or not they put in a modern automotive engine oil that had friction additives added to it. You know, let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so on oil for motorcycles, you know, pretty much all oil, at least in the United States, has this circle on it, and it tells you about the rating of the oil. There's also more information about rating here. I like this one because it's, where are you? Jazzo, bam, Jazzo MA2. So this oil, while it is intended for diesel engines, has a high level of zinc in it, and that Jazzo MA2 tells me that I'm good to put this in old vintage motorcycles. But this circle, back to this thing, in the lower half of this, you see there's nothing there. On this automotive oil, it says resource conserving, or sometimes it'll say energy saving. But for motorcycles with a wet clutch that is bathed in oil all the time, you do not want that energy conserving or resource conserving or energy saving word there. You want it empty here. In a wet clutch, those friction additives that they put in that resource conserving oil, they penetrate the linings on the clutch discs, and they slip, and you don't want a slipping clutch. So my brother said he put just regular oil in it, and he couldn't tell me whether or not it had that energy or resource conserving mark on it. So I got to get this oil out. The damage may be done already because it's been sitting in transport and it sat a little while in his garage. But you know, hopefully I don't need to order up a whole new clutch. Maybe I do, you know, I will if I have to. But I got to get this oil out and start with what I know is correct oil for this motorcycle. And I did order a new oil filter. These Honda filters are pretty ubiquitous, and you know, they look like that, and they come with different O-rings for different Honda bikes, but I'll only need 2 of those. I see someone has already been kind of hard on this. Now, why do people do this? There we go. Does not need to be that tight, folks. Well, if he changed it, I'd be surprised. It smells old. I don't know. Almost like it's got a little gas in it. I'll show you a little trick on how to see if there's possibly been any friction additives in this oil. So the trick is, get a big heavy screwdriver like this and get a little of the oil on your fingers and see if you can hold it. I can't. You should be able to hold a flat-bladed screwdriver by the blade. There, I can hold it, but I'm squeezing really hard. I think this is the wrong oil. Actually, for the record, I shouldn't recommend that you do that way, because then you're touching the oil and it's cancer-causing chemical. So officially, I don't recommend that you do that with a screwdriver, but I also cannot recommend that you do it with rubber gloves on, because it won't necessarily work with the rubber. So do with that what you will. So hey guys, this video is getting a little long, and I'm gonna cut it here, and we'll continue on with the restoration of the CX500 in videos to come. But what I'm going to do from here is just put in some high zinc motor oil without the friction additives in it, and we'll be back soon with more videos on getting the thing running and testing the charging system and finding out if there's really some work to be done there. I'm told there is, but we don't really know yet. Hey, if you like what I'm doing, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to become an urban monk. Thanks for watching.
If you like motorcycles, custom builds, or just like a good story about a man's 3-year effort to build a tribute to his childhood teacher, get a copy of Creating Mr. Corton. In it, you'll learn how this man changed this man for the better. How this man took this and built this. How these guys became lifelong friends and enthusiasts of motorcycling and craftsmanship. And how the name Urban Monk originated. It's available from Amazon anywhere in the world that Amazon ships, in both paperback and ebook, or you can purchase through a link found on urbanmonktv.com. Get your copy of Creating Mr. Corton today.